Alrighty, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. Can everybody hear me? Can I get some like thumbs up on the videos? Yes,
Yes.
excellent. Great. Um, so you all have the ability to mute and unmute yourself and put your video on and off. So feel free to do that throughout the webinar today. I'm happy to have kind of conversations going. You can also type things into the chat if you would rather type than talk. Um, all of that is completely up to you all today, and I will leave it at that. So welcome. I am Colleen Del Vecchio. I am a kind of career coach for many years, and this is one of the webinars that I've done many times for a bunch of different colleges, for myself, for just small groups that I started calling Right Career Right Now. It's going to kind of talk us through how to find a career that makes sense for you. I have been trying to offer, I'm trying to set up 2 or 3 webinars a week right now for while we're all stuck at home. So hopefully some of these are of interest to you, and you are welcome to join in as you'd like. So today, what we're going to talk about. Today we're going to be talking a bit about what is really important to you in your next job, to kind of figure out what motivates you and what's going to make sense for you, and to figure out how to make a change. I know for many people, changing careers might have been something that was on their mind. And then now with this whole idea of working from home, or maybe the job you have has required you to go to work and you're not thrilled with it, or you're just ready to do something different. So hopefully today that will give you some clarity on kind of what those next steps might be. All right. So, one of the things I always say, right, when you are out kind of and about in the world, you go to a party, you go to a cocktail party, you meet people at an event, one of the first things they always say is, what do you do? And for many of us, if we're in a job that we dislike, if we're in a job that doesn't fit, if we are between jobs at the moment, if we feel that we are underemployed or unemployed, this gets really uncomfortable for many of us. So I love to try to switch it up and really get people to think about, what do they love to do instead, right? Start asking people at events, what do you love to do? I just ran a workshop for a group here in Western Massachusetts on women in philanthropy. Sorry, those are my beagles barking because it's work from home right now. And now I have children going to try to run to quiet the beagles. Or let them out and let them go bark at the neighbors anyway. Right. So I always love to ask people, what do they love to do? Right. What is something that is so exciting in your life that you would prefer to do that, right, every day? So what are some of the things that you love to do? What are some of the things you love to do now? What are some of the things that you would spend your time doing? You can type things in chat, or you can chime in if you would like as well. I know it's a little odd to be doing that on video, but you are all welcome to. So start by thinking about that. Because here's one of the things that I think that's out there, right? When you look at a lot of the career books out there and you look at a lot of career information, they talk about this kind of Venn diagram and that middle piece, right? That you should be looking for a career that's something you love to do, that makes you money, and that you have the skills to do it. Right. And it makes you money. That's also a piece that's, is there a need for this position? Right. So this is what most career counselors out there talk about. I've always been a little bit on the outside because I always add this big red circle that talks about it fits with your life right now. Because I think one of the things that's really important to think about is that the career you decide on today, the career you're interested in today, the career that you might want to do, just simply may not fit with your life right now. And or it may fit with your life now, but it doesn't in another 5 years. Right? So think about when you're looking for a career that it actually has to fit these 4 areas, right? It makes you money, you love to do it, or you at least like to do it enough that you want to spend 40 hours a week doing it, right? You have the skills and it fits. And so when I talk about fit, I think about things like, right, if you are somebody who has young children, does this fit with your life and the schedule that you have to keep? If you are somebody who wants to travel a lot, does this job fit with that? Um, I was meeting with someone about a month or so ago, and she said what she loves to do more than anything is forage for mushrooms. It was an interesting one, I will say, right? I had not heard of that one before. So she wants to go forage for mushrooms. And I guess there are particular times of the year that it is better to forage for mushrooms than others. And she wanted a career that would let her take excessive amounts of time off during mushroom foraging season versus other points in the year where she didn't mind working lots of extra hours. So, right, this is different for everybody. So for her, what was going to fit with her life right now is a job that has this real flexibility of timing so she could actually forage for more mushrooms. So when I think of my life, right, I think of, right, these kind of three pillars. And this is where I kind of brought me back to this point of it really has to fit in with your life, right? So when I think of those first boxes on the screen, right? I was at BU, I was single, I was a college student. Great. Eventually I stayed living in Boston. I eventually got married. I was working at nonprofits. That all worked well until I had a baby. And then we moved out to the Springfield, Mass area, and working for the place in Boston didn't really work. I had to travel. So I switched to a hospital job. And that was great until I hit a point of my child being in school and we moved further into the Pioneer Valley. I ended up having a second marriage and then I started working in higher ed and consulting because here's where it kind of needed to kind of come to at that point, right? I needed a job that had a different type of flexibility as my daughter got older. So as you look at it, right, these things weren't purposeful. My career changes weren't purposeful at the time that I thought, oh, my life's changing. But when you look back at it and I started saying, oh, well, I was working here. It was great working at a hospital when my daughter was in daycare. It was perfect, right? The hospital hours were 8 to 4:30 and daycare hours were 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. So it worked fine. But once she was in kindergarten and I needed more flexibility, I didn't have that flexibility. And so I needed to look for something different. So thinking about where you are at that point in time is really important. And to know that the career you choose today may be something very different than what you want to do next year. It may be something very different than what you want to do in 5 years. And that's okay, right? It's okay to say, I don't want to use those skills ever again, or I don't want to use my degree in art history at this point. Um, some folks have been sending chats to everyone to look at and some to others, but, you know, I know Elizabeth mentioned she loved doing social work, but it wasn't paying the bills, right? So sometimes it's the thing that you're doing has to switch for the time being in order to make things work. And that's okay, right? This you can find online anywhere, everywhere, right? If you Google Wheel of Life, there's about 1,000 different ones that come up. But I always like putting this out in front of people and getting them to think about how are they rating kind of all these aspects of their life at this point. Because even though my job had been kind of working with people about their career, what you really realize is that this is so intertwined, right? You can't have your career completely separate from your family, from your relationships, from your finance, from your health, right? From what you want in your social life. You need all of these things to start to look at coming together. And so, uh, Somebody just did ask me if I would send these slides out after, and absolutely. So I'll send these to everybody, and you can then have this wheel of life to do. And so what I always tell people to do is rank themselves on all of these to see where they are at this moment in time. And someone just said they need to redo it when they remember doing it with me at one point. Imani, yes, absolutely. Right. So when I work with folks, I usually tell them date this and do this every 3 months. Alexandra said she has a different one. There's probably 50 of these out there, probably even more, right? They also have blank ones that you can put what it is that you want on it. So I work with people and say, go in and rank yourself 1 to 10, right? 10 being the best, 1 being, right, I'm barely functioning in this area. And then let's take a step back and look, because it may be that you said it's really career. So I can go back to Elizabeth, who said, right, she loved being a social worker, but it didn't pay the bills. So maybe the career was doing really well, but the finance piece was really low. And so sometimes it's, can those things come together somehow? And sometimes the answer is no, right? I'm never going to be able to find you a social work job where you get to work 30 hours a week and make $200,000 a year. It's just probably not going to happen. I mean, maybe there's one of those out there in the world, but right, some jobs are only going to pay a certain amount. So that's when we have to look at this and see what's going to make sense. But to look at it and to realize, right, that if you're looking at your career just as that one little piece of the pie, and you're looking at in complete isolation of these other areas, then you're going to land in the wrong place, right? Or you're going to be looking for the wrong thing, because you're going to think you want a career that does one thing, but what you really need is a career that kind of is helping out in these other areas. Why I make people do this every 3 months, you can do it more often. But I usually think about every 3 months, maybe every 6 months is good, just so you can go back and touch base for yourself. And because sometimes you feel like things aren't moving in your life. And then you go back and you look and you thought, oh, you know what? 3 months ago, my finances were terrible, or right, my social life was terrible. And I've put some effort in there and I've managed to grow those things. And so things have gotten better, things have improved. Um, just sometimes we don't see them. The baby steps we don't always see. Do folks have any questions on the Wheel of Life before I click to the next slide?
Colleen, I don't know how to type in answers the way other people are doing.
Sure, there should be a box that says chat. It's usually up in the top of your screen.
Actually at the bottom, Colleen.
Oh, it's in the bottom of yours?
Yeah, as a participant. So it should be glowing for you now in orange because someone just typed in it.
So hopefully you're able to see that and can type in questions that you have. Okay, so somebody just said if you see the share button, it's near there. Somebody asked if we know of any apps.
Do you see mine? My name's Betsy. Do you see mine? I just typed it and entered it.
Yep, it says like sub teaching.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. So somebody asked if I know of any apps that you can fill it in digitally. I haven't seen that yet. I wouldn't doubt that there's one out there somewhere that's maybe part of like some bigger career coaching package, or like I said, you see a lot of therapists and social workers use this tool as well. So it may be out there, but I have not seen it. But there you go. I forget who asked that. Alexandra, yeah, there you go. You can make that and we'll all buy it, right? As a career coach, I mean, I think that would be a great kind of thing to have, to be able to see that over time, right? To see that wheel, see that kind of line go around it from time to time. So it might be, I haven't looked. So the next exercise that I make people do to help them try to figure out what's next for them is start with the 5 whys of why do you work? And here's where you ask somebody, right, why do you work 5 times? And you keep asking the question, right? So here's what happened last time I did it. Somebody asked me, why do I work? my first answer, right? I work because I need money to support myself and my family. So then, why do I need that? Well, because I've always been a big contributor to our finances. Why? Because we have 2 daughters to send to college at the same time. Why? Because I don't want my daughters to have to take out substantial student loans. Right? Why again? My parents paid for college and I don't want to burden my daughters with loans. Right? So, sometimes it's really kind of talking through that, because then it really helps you figure out what are some of the things that are going to be really important right now. So when I look at this, right, to me, the things that are really important to me are contributing to the household, supporting myself and my family, and making enough money right now to send 2 kids to college. Right? If you asked me those whys 5 times a year, and probably 4 or 5 years ago, the whys would be different. Right? Now my kids are almost 16, or they're sophomores in high school. We're only, 2.5 years out from college. And it makes me nervous, right? It makes me nervous to pay that money. So, this is where I'm kind of starting to look in that sense. Again, this is why it's important to really kind of reassess this all the times. And the reasons absolutely can be non-financial. There are definitely points in my life where the finance piece was not as important. I mean, it was always important, right? If I am not independently wealthy, I will always have to work. So there are times where the finances aren't the most important things. There are times that giving back is an important thing. There are times that working for a good cause is important. There are times where it's health insurance. Um, there can be many, many reasons why. So what are some of the reasons why all of you work? Yeah, I see some people typing, so I see them coming in. Let's see, daily interaction with people, doing the work that you do, um, because there's no one else to support you, right? You have to support yourself. Yeah. Powerball may be a big piece, right? Have always worked, need the money. Health insurance. Um, Health insurance is a big piece, right? For years, I was very, very particular about the health insurance that I would get, and would only apply to companies that had very specific health insurance. Um, Connected to a mission, uh, right? Imani just said, right, recently resigned because the mission wasn't enough to compensate and balance her other values of family and building a business. Um, Money, contribution, right? Kids starting college. Right. One person saying, sometimes it's hard to get past the 5 whys when it's just you. Absolutely, right? And I don't want to downplay the financial piece, right? Working, definitely, we all work to get a paycheck. Like, let's be clear. Most of us would quit our jobs tomorrow if we won the $800 million Powerball, or I think it's up to like 170 or something this week, right? So if we were all there, but also thinking about what else? Like, what else do you get from working? What else do you get from your career? I think of folks right now, so many of us are going to working from home and working remotely. And this is going to be hard for many of us, right? For many people who are social beings who really like that interaction, it's going to be hard to be doing this from home all the time. And so thinking of ways that, being a little more creative, making sure you're using video as opposed to just phone all the time, thinking of ways of how you're connecting with others, because it can be really hard. And so thinking about what else it is that you get from work. The next part that I always go into with folks is to really start thinking about what's really important to you. What's important to you in overall life? So, as you can see, for me as a career counselor, most people who do career counseling start with, right, what are your skills? What are you good at? What job do you want? To me, I always start with the stuff that's important to you, right? How do we look at your whys for working? How do we look at what's most important to you? Because if you tell me the certain things are really important to you and the job I help you find does not um, align with that, it's never going to be a good match for you. So when I look at myself right now, what's important to me, right? My family, my husband, 2 teenagers, 2 dogs. Flexibility is really important to me. You know, between kids and dogs and house and all of that stuff, I am not someone who's going to be really good at a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, have to be sitting at the desk kind of job. It's just not going to work for me right now. Uh, it's really important for me to look at things that are good and help to make them great. I really love jobs, and it's really important to me when I'm finding a job is that I have the ability to kind of grow either people or projects or programs. Uh, Something that helps me to see that I'm making a difference. Uh, I really want to make decisions that have an impact, right? I don't want to be the person who constantly uh, is told exactly what to do, but I want to have the authority to make decisions. And traveling is really big for me. I love to travel. So when I look at this, I think, okay, I need a job that makes enough money for travel, that is a high enough up position in a place that allows me to make the decisions, has flexibility that allows me to have that time with my family. Uh, it I would not do well in a job where I think of, I felt a couple of us were talking recently of people who lose their vacation time, right? That they work for places that they can never take their vacation time, and it adds up so much that they end up losing time. That's not something that I'm really good at, right? Let's see. So Betsy said, it's really important for her to be part of a team working towards common goals, that what she does has an impact, versus digging holes and filling them up again, right? Wanting to have something better than what you've had before. So really think about what's important to you about the job. Now, I will say, right, this is what I always think of. This is what we're looking at from an ideal standpoint. Ideal doesn't always happen all the time, because if you go back to that wheel of life or what's important to you right now, one of the things really important to me right now is paying for my kids' college. So would I take a job that pays a little bit more, that doesn't have as much flexibility? Probably, which is a lot different than what I would have said a few years ago, right? A few years ago, I would have said the money isn't as important as the flexibility because I want to be here while my kids are still young. So thinking about what are the things that change and what's important to you. Um, so so then I usually take people down the path are, what do you value in a career? And then figuring out what do you really need and what do you really want? And that can be hard for folks, right? The need versus the want. What do you, and I think about things like starting with salary. What do you need in order to pay your bills and to live? And then what do you really want? Right? Very different, right? What I need in order to pay my bills is a lower amount than what I would actually want the job to pay. But you have to figure out, what do you really need? So when I think about this first area of career values, I think I have 3 slides coming up now that have a whole list of things that are some of the career values. And I'm not going to read them out loud because that's a little obnoxious for me to read all of these words one by one. But I want you to take a look at them. And as I said, after this presentation, I will send them to you. But look at them and start thinking, which of these are things that you really would value in a job? Do any of them jump out at you when you look at that list?
I only see A through C and R through T. They don't all show.
Yes, yeah, there'll be 3 slides with the rest of them. So this
Okay.
is slide 1. So are there any on here that jump out at people as something that you think, oh, this is something that I'd really value in a job? Autonomy, appreciation is a big thing, right? And I always think of things like appreciation, right? So different for each of us. Some of you might want your, right, that you're appreciated on your job, and that's shown by a bonus or a larger paycheck. And others of you, a handwritten note works really well. And somebody else might want to be nominated for Employee of the Month. Whereas somebody else on this call, right, the idea of being Employee of the Month and having your picture on the wall, you would rather die. Right. So looking at all the ones, right, people are putting them in, you know, time freedom, teamwork, appreciation, continuous learning, balance, creativity. A couple of people said balance, a lot of people said balance, right? Security, creativity, clear expectations. All right, let's see what else is on this list. There's the second page. Right, and I think of how different we all are, because I always look at the second one there that says deadline pressure. Right, some people really do well with here's an exact deadline, and other people are much better with here, I have enough time to get this done the way I want it to. Right, see a couple people putting in ethics, excitement, expertise. Someone said not on the list yet. Investment, like your employer invests in you and cares. Absolutely. You know, expertise, respect, diversity. And I think this might be the last slide of this one. Fun and humor, vacation time. Absolutely. Right? Mental challenge, mentors, good benefits, that you have the ability to influence people. So think of these things, right, and put them together. So again, I'll send this out to everyone. But this is one of those other things too that you can easily Google. There's, you know, 100 different career values exercises out there that have longer and longer lists of these. I could probably do a whole webinar and just put these slides up one after another and have you all pick what was interesting to you. But think about the things that are really important to you. Think about what you need from a job, and then what do you want from a job, right? What do you really truly need from a job at this point in time? So when I think of stuff that people put up there, right? Intellectual challenge, good benefit, influencing people, good coworkers, a values-driven workplace, right? Some of these are things that you actually might need at this moment in time, and some of them are things that you actually just want. And the hope is that you find a job that meets your needs and wants, but at the very least that it's going to meet all the things that you really truly need at this point in time. Okay, so to switch gears a bit, right? So the next thing I start talking to people about, once we start to figure out what do you value and what's important to you, is what's your superpower? What is your superpower? What is something that feels effortless to you, right? Think about the things that you do day to day, right? At work, at home, or the things in the past. School, internships, volunteering. What's something that you have done that feels effortless to you, right? Doesn't, you think it's just so easy. So I see, right? Organizing, writing, right? Not everybody's good at this. Relationship building. And so the thing with your people's superpowers is that you actually sometimes don't recognize them in yourself because you assume that everyone else is just as good as that, right? And for many of us, our superpowers, we don't see them in ourselves. It takes other people to kind of point them out. I see Amani talking about developing people, public speaking, good vision, right? What are the things that you see more clearly than others, right? And then when are you fearless? And go back to that one. Sorry, when can you see more clearly than others? What are the things that's sitting around? You're like, this is obviously the right way to go. When are those times for you, right? Are they times where you have to make a big decision, a small decision? Are they times when you have to make a financial decision versus an ethical decision? Right? Think about what are the times that you see more clearly than other people do? And when are you fearless? When are the times that you jump right in and are like, yep, I can do it? Particularly, I always think of when are you fearless without lots of kind of setup time, right? When are you able to be fearless and jump right into something without having lots of people or lots of time to prepare? So the next exercise that I make people do is to actually keep a calendar for about a month and figure out when you get home from work, what are the days that you're energized, or if you're volunteering or you're doing school, whatever fills your days right now. What days are you energized and what days are you drained? Now, we're in a slightly different time right now. So it's a little bit different, I think, than it might have been for you be a couple of weeks ago. If you're now stuck with doing work from home, doing school from home, right? We're socially distancing ourselves from people. It's a little different. But think about in general, what are the days that you go home from work energized? Now, this is drastically different from person to person, right? I'm someone who loves I love doing training. I love doing public speaking. And those are the type of things that energize me. I get home from a day that I've been up all day, standing in front of a crowd, working the room, teaching things. I come home and I'm ready to do other things. Days that I have to be at work and I have to sit at my desk all day and I'm plowing through budgets or just really kind of, to me, more monotonous things that are monotonous to me, maybe not to you. Those are the days that I come home and I want to sit on the couch and I want to watch Netflix all day, right? Right. I look at Janencia wrote in, right, those days that she's energized, that she feels like she's communicated enough. And as a result, people are delivering their best work, right? Days that you've motivated others. Think about, and so Burke, I saw you wrote never. So is it you never come home energized from it at the moment? And if that's the case, can you think of a time that you did come home energized, that you were doing something maybe in the past that, the things that you were doing, you would think that you would come home and be ready to go to bed, but you've been managing. And you've been doing a lot of temp work. So I will say, I'm working with somebody else right now who's doing temp work at a bunch of different different nonprofits in the area. And one thing she and I talk with each week are, what are the times that, at even small snippets, that she actually feels energized, right? That she's completed one thing and feels excited to kind of move on to the next, or excited to do it again. So, even if it's that you're not fully energized because of maybe other medical issues or, not feeling like the work makes sense, but thinking about what are things in the past that you finished them and thought, I can't wait to do that again. Or thinking about the times that you do stuff and you're like, if I never did that again, that would be good, right? If I never had to personally write a budget ever again, that would be great. I can deal with budgets. I just don't want to be the one who has to fill in particularly very minute budgets. right? Where you're taking a large chunk of money and trying to figure out, right, how much money are we going to spend on paper products this year? Right? Totally not what my excitement is. Um, Amani was talking about being drained spreadsheets. Yes. You and I are the same person there, right? Back-to-back meetings with not having any work time, but feeling really energized when motivating others, connecting with people, planning podcasts, right? So on the other hand, there are many people in the world that working with spreadsheets excites them. So I need to partner with those people, right? So they can do the spreadsheets and I don't have to. But thinking about that, um, you know, thinking about the idea of direction changes moment to moment without any strategy being draining. Uh, so thinking about for yourself, when do you feel energized? And if not, what are the things in your mind that you think could help you feel energized? And it might be that your body is tired, but your mind is energized, right? I mean, I think of times that I've done um, workshops all day where, right, my legs, I just want to sit, but my mind is still going because I'm still excited. Um, you know, Drained, being unable to help folks avoid bullying. I mean, that has to be so draining, right? Energized on solving problems and helping others. So think for yourself as you start to put this together, when does that work best for you? So then the next question I always ask people, right? When do you feel strong? I feel strong when? When do you feel strongest? Let's see. When you can lead others effectively, make an impact on others' lives, uh, surrounded by great people doing great work when everyone's supporting each other. Right? So think for yourself, when do you feel strong? When are the days that you feel strong? And if it's not currently, right, think of the days in the past when you felt strong. Think of what, when you were a student, um, maybe when you were volunteering somewhere, right? It doesn't have to be current day. So somebody else said when giving autonomy to make decisions, when they're feeling useful. So it's hard sometimes when you are currently unemployed or underemployed or not in the right situation to ever feel strong, right? This can be really tough. It feels very deflated, right? It feels very draining. You don't feel at the end of the day like things are going in the right direction. So sometimes it's thinking about these things, it's trying to see, even if you go back to the wheel of life, if the career is not something that we can do, that you're able to do something about right at this moment in time, are there other pieces on that wheel that you can look at? Um, do you need to decide you're going to do something radically different than you're currently doing, right? Quite often, the careers that we choose at 20 or 21 or 18, or the career that we accidentally stumbled into out of college, may not be the right career for you when you're 50. Right? You're a completely different person in every other aspect. And thinking about that continuum of life, right? I'm going to turn 50 this year. And when I think about that and I think about what I was doing at 25, I couldn't keep up with the 25-year-old version of myself. Like, why would I ever think, as Carla's laughing, because one person on this call was my roommate back when I was 25, and neither of us could keep up with ourselves back then, right? But when you think of that, why would we expect our career to not have changed? Why would we expect the career that we thought at 18 was a good idea to be the career that works well for you right at this moment in time? Because it's just not. And Carla's now making fun of me, telling me to speak for myself. She can keep up with the 25-year-old version of the two of us. But thinking about that, right? I wouldn't expect my daughters who are, almost 16 to make a decision today of what they want to do for the rest of their life and stick with that until the day they die, right? I've been divorced. I don't even expect people to stick with their husbands or wife or spouse or partner for their entire, you know, 50 years of their life. Why do we expect people to choose one job and that the same things are going to work for them? And I do think that's changing drastically, right? We see the future of work being one where people are taking jobs for lesser and lesser amount of times. I think of my parents' generation, right, who are in their late 70s. My parents each had 2 jobs their entire working adult life. That's it, 2. And that's not uncommon for that generation. So thinking about for the younger generation that are taking jobs that they'll work at for 6 months or 8 months and switch and move and to find those right places is not is not uncommon, and it should be expected. We can't expect you to think that the job that you might have had 20 years ago is the job that works for you today. So what gets in our way of change, right? We're all afraid of this. There are a handful of people in the world like me who actually enjoy change, but for the most part, many people really don't have a hard time dealing with it. So, you know, thinking about in general how to make a change, which I think of this week alone, right? How many of us had to completely change our routine, have had to completely set new goals, hold ourselves accountable, and track our progress in a way that we did not have to 2 weeks ago, right? The world is a different place today than it was 2 weeks ago. And so thinking for yourself, how do you kind of put a change in place? And if it's a career change, right, how do you really decide what is going to be okay? And right, I know salary is one of those pieces, which is why I think the financial piece is an important one to talk about, but also not the only one. So what can you do in the next 30 days, right? I always say find a buddy, right? Find somebody that you want to keep you on track. Um, I'm going to probably just open some open webinar times over the next couple of weeks while we're all home to just allow people to jump in and ask questions about careers. So, right, everything from your resume to LinkedIn to interviewing and any of those things. Um, Clifton Strengths, the Strengths Finder, is an online assessment. It's one that I really like. It's $20 if you do it. So it is an assessment that kind of tells you what are your strengths. I think this helps folks with what are their superpowers, what are the things that they do well. I think it helps folks a lot on being able to talk on job interviews and kind of boost their self-esteem around things. Look at your career values. I will send you these that have that list, but there's also, like I said, probably 100 different career values lists out there that you can look at to start thinking about what do you really value in a career, what's important to you. And then write a new resume. I put my Clifton Strengths, my Strengths Finder assessment results, I put my strengths right on my resume. I use them and talk about them regularly. I think they're really helpful to folks. Someone asked if this is something we did at Lisa's house a few years ago. Yes, we did. At least some people I did do one workshop that was on doing Strengths Finder. So you might have that. You can log back in and get your results if you don't remember them. And that is the end of my presentation part. So I will, we have about 15 minutes, so I will gladly go and kind of hang on the line and let people ask whatever questions they have. Betsy just asked, could your strengths change? Sometimes they might change, but in general, your top 5, which is what you get for the general test, will stay about the same. Yours might drop down. There's a list of 34 strengths that Clifton came up with. So though you might get a different couple in your top 5, it means they probably move down to like 6 or 7. So they might change ever so slightly, but not drastically.